Good morning students. Today we will learn respiration. What is meant by respiration or define the term respiration? Respiration is the process of biochemical. It is a biochemical process. Respiration is a biochemical process of a oxidation of organic compounds. Oxidation of organic compounds, that is the food, in a orderly manner. In a orderly manner for a liberation of chemical energy, for a liberation of chemical energy in the form of ATP. Then C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives 6CO2 plus 6O2. 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus 38 ATP. Respiration is a biochemical process of oxidation of organic compound of a orderly manner for a liberation of chemical energy in the form of ATP. C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus 38 ATP. In this process, exchange of gases takes place in the environment and the organisms. Due to respiration process, exchange of gases takes place in the environment and the organisms. The site of gaseous exchange is called respiratory surface. The main features of respiratory surfaces. First feature is it should be a large surface First feature of respiratory surface. It should be a large surface area. Then second feature of respiratory surface is it should be a thin, highly vascular and permeable. And then third feature of respiratory surface is it should be moist. It should be moist. The main features of respiratory surface. First is it should have a large surface area. Then second is the thin, highly vascular, permeable to exchange of gases. Then third, it should be a moist. Then next, in animals and plants, compared to plants and animals. In plants, the respiratory surface area like stomata, lenticels, and in animals, the respiratory surface area, it is depend upon the complexity of organization of respiratory organs. That is in lower organisms, the respiratory surface organ is the gills, and in higher animals, the respiratory surface organ is the lungs. In man, the main respiratory organ is the lungs. Then, in previous lecture, we will learn about the human respiratory system, but in this lecture, we will revise the different organs or different parts of the respiratory system. The different parts of respiratory system which help the transport of exchange of gases and which help to transport system in human respiratory system. The respiratory system consists of the human respiratory system, consists of two parts. First, upper respiratory system, and second part is the lower respiratory system. consists of following parts. First is the external nerves. Second is the nasal cavity. Third is the pharynx. Fourth is the nose and throat. Then lower respiratory system having or consists of following parts. First larynx, second trachea, then third bronchi or bronchus. Then fourth is the lungs. Lungs is the main respiratory organ. Next, it is the alveoli. These two upper respiratory part and the second is the lower respiratory part. First part is the external nerves. First part is the external nerves. External nerve is a outermost slit-like openings of the nostrils. External nerve is the outermost slit-like openings, which is called as the external nerves. In respiration, the inhaled air enters through the external nerves into the nasal cavity. Then second part is the nasal cavity. Second part is the nasal cavity. Nasal cavity, it is divided into two chambers. Divided into two chambers. Left nasal chamber and right nasal chamber. By a mesenchymal cartilage. Second part is the nasal cavity. The skin has a hairs. Which trap? Skin has a hairs which trap the dust particles and suspended particles which is inhaled by the air. Then the nasal cavity, which is internally lined by a ciliated epithelium cells. Then the left nasal chamber divided by a mesenteroid cartilage. The nasal chambers, each nasal chamber then next each nasal chamber is divided into 3 parts. Each nasal chamber is divided into 3 parts. Into 3 parts or 3 regions. First is the vestibule. First part is the vestibule. It is the proximal part. It is the proximal part. It is the proximal part. It has a hairs which trap the dust particles and suspended particles. Then second region is the respiratory part. Second part is the respiratory part. In this part, inhaled air, which is warmth and moisture, and then third part is the sensory or olfactory chamber. Sensory or olfactory region. In olfactory region or sensory region, which is lined by a epithelial cells which detect sensory or olfactory region lined by a epithelial cells or olfactory epithelia, which is also known as the sensory epithelial or olfactory epithelial cells, which detect the smell, which detect the smell. Then next part is the pharynx. Next part is the pharynx. Nasal chamber, the sensory or olfactory region, which is the uppermost region. This region which opens into the pharynx region. Pharynx is divided into three parts. First is the nasopharynx. Second is the oropharynx. And third is the laryngopharynx. Third is is the laryngopharynx. Nasopharynx, which leads into the oropharynx. Then oropharynx, which continues with the laryngopharynx. In between oropharynx and laryngopharynx, a palate bone is present. A palate bone is present in between oropharynx and laryngopharynx. A palate bone is present. A pharynx has a set of lymphoid organ called tonsils. Then next part of human respiratory system, that is the lower respiratory parts. Next point is lower respiratory part of the respiratory system. First part is the larynx. It is called as the voice box. Larynx, which is called as the voice box. Larynx is a hollow structure which contains a pair of vocal cords. Due to vibration of vocal cords, sound is produced. Due to vibration of vocal cords, sound is produced. At the inner lining of the larynx, vocal cords are held by. At the inner lining of the larynx, vocal cords are held by a cartilage membrane and muscles. Vocal cords are held by a cartilage membrane and muscles. In males, the size of larynx is increased due to puberty. In males, the size of larynx is increased due to puberty. The larynx opens into the laryngopharynx by a slit-like opening glottis, called glottis. The opening is a guarded part a leaf-like flap called epiglottis, The leaf-like flap epiglottis, which prevent the entry of food into the trachea. Leaf-like flap called epiglottis, which prevent the entry of food into the trachea. Then next part of lower respiratory part is the second part is the trachea. Second part is the trachea. It is a 10 to 12 centimeter in length. It is a 10 to 12 centimeter long tube which is made up of fibrocartilage, The inner lining of the trachea, is formed by a ciliated epithelium and pseudostratified epithelia. The inner lining of trachea is formed by ciliated epithelium and pseudostratified epithelia. On trachea, (16 to 20) C-shaped rings of cartilage is present, which prevent the collapse of trachea. तर याच्यामध्ये ट्रकिया इलॉंगेटेड ट्यूब लाइक स्ट्रक्चर आहे की ज्याची मेजरमेंट 10 to 12 सेंटीमीटर एवढी असलेली आपल्याला बघायला मिळते. त्याचबरोबर या ट्रकियाच्या इनर लाइनिंगला आपल्याला सिलिएटेड एपिथेलियम अँड स्यूडोस्ट्रॅटिफाइड एपिथेलियमचं इनर लाइनिंग प्रेझेंट असलेलं दिसून येतं. कारण इनहेल केलेली जी एअर आहे याच्यामधून जे फॉरेन पार्टिकल्स ज्या वेळेला ट्रकियामधून कॅरी होतात त्यावेळेला कॅरी होत असताना या सिलिएटेड इपिथेलियम आणि सुडोस्ट्रॅटिफाइड इपिथेलियम ज्या सेल्स आहेत तर त्या सेल्स विच ट्रॅप दिस फॉरेन पार्टिकल्स and due to sneezing these foreign particles which are expelled throughout the body by an external nerves. Then this trachea is divided into trachea divided into two branches. Left bronchi and right bronchi. Trachea is reached into the middle cavity by an form of bronchus which is divided into two branches, that is the right bronchi and left bronchi. Larynx, trachea, then trachea is divided into two bronchi, right bronchi and left bronchi. Then next point is the bronchus, which is divided into the primary bronchiole when the left bronchi and the right bronchi it reaches into the middle thoracic cavity. The left bronchi and right bronchi which reaches into the middle cavity of thoracic cage, middle cavity of thoracic cage. The bronchi right bronchi and left bronchi which is again divided into right bronchi and left bronchi which is divided into primary bronchi. Then primary bronchi is again divided into secondary bronchi and tertiary bronchi and tertiary bronchi. Tertiary bronchi at the terminal end of tertiary bronchi at the terminal end of bronchioles at the terminal ends of the bronchioles, primary bronchi, then secondary bronchi, then tertiary bronchi. And the end of tertiary bronchi, a bronchioles which ends into a air sac-like structures which is like a bunch of grapes, which is like a bunch of grapes at the terminal end of bronchiole. A bunch of grape-like structure which is called as the alveoli, which is called as the alveoli. The function of alveoli is the exchange of gases. The alveoli, which is formed by a single squamous epithelial cell. Then next part is the lungs. A pair of lungs present in human respiratory system. Lungs is the main respiratory organ which is a spongy, elastic, which is a spongy, elastic, which is present in the middle cavity of the thoracic cage. The right lung is a larger and divided into three lobes. Divided into three lobes. Hence the lungs is a lobulated structure. Right lung is a larger and divided into three lobes, while the left lung is a smaller and divided lobes. The spongy, elastic, lobulated lungs which are enclosed in pleural membrane which is double walled membrane enclosed in a pleural membrane. Lungs enclosed in a pleural membrane which is double walled membrane. The outer membrane is parietal membrane and inner is visceral membrane. In between two membrane, space is present. In between two membrane, space is present called pleural space. Called pleural space. This pleural space is filled by a lubricating fluid This lubricating fluid is secreted by a membrane. And this fluid which prevent the friction during the respiration process. Then last part is the diaphragm. Diaphragm is the muscular septum. Diaphragm is the muscular septum which separate thoracic cavity from abdominal cavity. When intercostal muscles are contract, diaphragm is flat, and when the intercostal muscles are relaxed, then the diaphragm is dome shaped. This is the respiratory parts which help in the process of respiration. In next lecture, we learn about the mechanism of respiration. Thank you.